Respawn Point Audio presents Ashes of the First Settlement. Book 1, Ashvale. Chapter 4, The Hollow Road. Part 1. I wake up because my hip hurts, which is new information about the ground I did not need and now can't unlearn. The fire's down to coals. Somewhere to my left, Tomas's lean-to is half a lean-to. 3 poles lashed together at the top, no walls yet, standing in the grey light like a teepee that gave up halfway through. Around me, 26 other people are doing the thing where you're awake, but pretending you're not, because the second you admit you're awake, the day starts. And right now, the day is cold, and your back is a crime scene. I admit I'm awake. The day starts. Survey land, cool down complete. I sit up. My back makes a sound I associate with old filing cabinets. Across the dead grass, Renata's already up. She's been up, from the look of her, for a while, crouched near the tree line with her hands wrapped around something that used to be a granola bar. "Morning," she says, before I'm close enough that I'd expect her to have noticed me. "Cool down's done." "Just now." "Use it east, toward the forest. I want to know what's past the deer trail before I walk into it blind." I don't argue, I tap it. Survey complete. Radius 200 meters. Terrain, forest interior, moderate density, undergrowth heavy wildlife signs, multiple. Trail density increases northeast water source. Creek continues northeast, narrows hazards detected. None within range. Notable, partial structure. 60 meters north of forest edge, overgrown, dimensions consistent with prior era construction. I read the last line twice. Then I read it to Renata, because at this point reading things out loud to people is basically my entire contribution to the settlement. Partial structure, she repeats. 60 meters in. That's close. Closer than the hills, I say. The hills. The ones that were shaped wrong. 2 miles west, still sitting there unconfirmed because survey land only has 1 battery, and I keep spending it on things that are useful today instead of things that are interesting forever. I file the structure next to the hills, in the part of my brain that's becoming a junk drawer of things I can't deal with yet. "I'll swing past it," Renata says, already standing, already checking the knife at her hip in the unhurried way of someone who's done this before. In a world that had hospitals. Hunting first, structure second. Structure doesn't feed anybody. "Take someone with you." She looks at me like I've suggested she take a hat. Renata. "Fine." She scans the camp, picks a guy I don't know yet. Broad shoulders, quiet, already on his feet like he'd been waiting for someone to need him, and tilts her head at the tree line. He nods and falls in step without a word. Back by mid-morning. Either way. Either way is doing a lot of work in that sentence. And I notice it. And I let it go. Because there isn't a version of this conversation where I tell Renata Cruz how to hunt. They're gone 2 hours and 40 minutes. I spend it doing inventory math with Hendricks, who has, overnight, acquired a notebook from somewhere and is treating it the way other men treat a firstborn child, and watching Thomas lose an argument with a third lean-to-pole that keeps sliding sideways every time he gets the second one tied. 41 energy bars, Hendricks reports, like a man reading a eulogy. Was 44. 3 people ate them overnight without asking. Did you find out who? I did not ask who because I am not the food police. I am the inventory, and the inventory's job is to know the number, not assign blame. He says this with the absolute conviction of a man who has several times in his life been both. 41 bars, 27 people. That's... I do the math, the way I do all math now, fast and silent and slightly nauseating. 1.5 bars each, if we ate them all today, which we're not. No, Hendricks agrees. We are not. Neither of us says the next part, which is that 41 energy bars is not a food supply, it's a buffer, and buffers exist to be spent slowly, on the bad days, which means right now. Day 2, everyone's still mostly fed from whatever was in their cars and pockets yesterday, is technically a good day, and we are already not eating the buffer. I think about that for a second. Then I stop thinking about it, because Renata's coming out of the tree line, and she's not carrying very much. 1 rabbit, that's the headline. 2 hours and 40 minutes, 2 people, and the forest gave up 1 rabbit, currently dangling from the quiet guy's hand by its back legs, looking smaller with every step they take toward camp. Trail's good, Renata says, before anyone can ask. Lots of sign. But it's morning. Everything that moves at dawn already moved. We go out at dusk next time. That's when they're active again. This, she nods at the rabbit, is a daytime consolation prize. How much is that, actually? I ask. And I hate that this is the question I ask, but it's the question, so I ask it. Maybe £2. Less, dressed. She shrugs, the honest shrug. Split 27 ways, that's a taste. Not a meal. A taste. Not a meal. I do the math anyway because that's what I do. £2 is roughly 900 grams, 27 people. That's about 33 grams of rabbit per person, which is less than the energy bar Hendrix isn't letting anyone have. And somewhere in my chest, something goes very quiet and very calm, the way it used to right before I had to tell a warehouse full of people that the truck wasn't coming today either. What about the structure? I ask, mostly to have something else to think about. Got close. Stone, mostly buried. Vines everywhere. Renata's already moving past me, toward the fire, toward people who are looking at the rabbit with an expression I recognize and don't love. Old. Older than anything I'd expect out here. Didn't go in. Wasn't going in alone. And we were already late getting back with that. Another nod at the rabbit. Tomorrow. With backup. I add it to the junk drawer. The hills. The structure. The growing, specific feeling that this valley used to belong to somebody. A long time before it belonged to us. Priya finds me before lunch. If lunch is the word for everyone gets roughly 1/3 of a granola bar, and we call it a meal, so nobody feels like they're being rationed, even though they are. Walk with me, she says, which from Priya means I need 5 minutes where nobody else can hear this, and I've learned to just go. We end up by the creek, far enough from camp that the conversation noise drops to background. Priya's got her arms crossed, scrubs still streaked with yesterday's road dust, and she doesn't waste time. I did a pass on everyone last night. While they slept, mostly. Easier to check people who aren't performing fine at you. She says, performing like it costs her something to say. Here's where we are. Most people are fine. Tired, scraped up, dehydrated but fine. That resolves with water and a couple days. That's not who I'm worried about. Who are you worried about? Curtis. The guy who was driving the truck. Asthmatic. His inhaler's got maybe 4 days of doses left if he's careful. And he is not going to be careful because nobody's careful with the thing keeping them breathing until it's almost gone. Mrs. Albrecht's diabetic. She's got insulin in a cooler bag that stopped being cold yesterday afternoon. I don't know how much that's degraded. I won't know until it stops working. And by then it's an emergency, not a warning. She takes a breath. And the kid, Mara, the one who asked you what happens tomorrow, she's running a fever. Low right now. Probably just stress and exposure. Probably. 4 days, Priya says. And she says it the way Renata says might be nothing. Flat. Because flat is the only way to say it without it costing too much. That's the window. Inside 4 days, one of those 3 things stops being probably fine and becomes something I can't fix with what I've got, which is currently a first aid kit from someone's glove box and a lot of opinions. What do you need? I need things that don't exist in this field. Pharmacy, refrigeration, a building. She looks toward camp, toward Thomas, still fighting the lean-to. Failing that, I need the things we're already doing to go faster than they're going. Shelter for Mara's fever, because cold nights make everything worse. And I need to know if there's a town, a pharmacy, anything within walking distance. Because if there is, that's where the next 4 days go. I think about the structure. Stone, buried, vines. Old. Not a pharmacy. Almost certainly not a pharmacy. I'll factor it in, I say, which is true and also not remotely the same as I have a plan. And Priya, to her enormous credit, doesn't pretend it is. I know, she says. I just needed someone else to be carrying it too. The notification comes that evening, while I'm watching Thomas finally get the third pole to stay put, and for 1 second, I think it's mine. It isn't. Level up, Thomas. Level 1 to level 2 class, journeyman builder. Thomas stops, looks at his own hands like they've changed, which, for all I know, they have. He doesn't say anything, 12 words a day, and apparently this isn't worth one of them, but he picks the 4th pole up differently than he picked up the first 3. Faster, surer. And then, a half second later, a second notification. Not just to him, to everyone. Settlement threshold met. Visibility expanded class, level and power tier are now visible between all settlement members. I don't understand what that means until I look up. And Brock, 15 feet away, mid-conversation with someone, stops talking and looks at me. And I realize he's not looking at me. He's looking at something above me. Reading it. I open my own interface. There's a new tab. Settlement. Members. I tap it. 27 names, 27 numbers next to them. I find Renata first, level 3, tracker, power tier green, and then Thomas, fresh off his level up, level 2, journeyman builder, green. Priya's level 2 too somehow, with a power tier that reads slightly differently than the others, a shade I don't have a word for yet. Then I find myself. Daniel, level 1, settlement founder, power tier green. Level 1. Still, the only level 1 on the list. I sit there for a second doing the thing where you already know the answer but you check the math anyway, because some part of you is hoping the math changed since the last time. It hasn't. Everyone in this field has done something in the last 24 hours that the system decided was worth a number going up. Hunted, built, treated someone. Watched the tree line. I read a list. Twice. Out loud. Once to nobody. That's it. That's the whole ledger. And on a field where everyone can now see everyone else's number, mine is the smallest one there. Brock's still looking at me. He doesn't say anything. For the first time since I've met him, Brock doesn't say anything. And somehow, that's worse.